Welcome back to Mind Force, a show where we tap into the strength it takes to live boldly, lead with clarity, and grow through whatever life throws at us. I'm your host, Nate Shear, and today's episode is a powerful one. Our guest is Grace Redman, a speaker, mindset coach, and former corporate leader who now empowers others to embrace resilience, faith, and mental grit in pursuit of their highest selves. She knows what it's like to face hard and still show up. Still trust and still rise. Today we'll explore how we overcome when life doesn't quite go according to plan, how surrender is not weakness and wisdom, and how real resilience is built when we combine high performance with deep faith. Let's start with the guest introduction. Grace, let's start with your story. Who are you behind the titles, and what personal experience most shape the work you're doing now?
Thank you so much for having me, Nate. I appreciate you. So I am Grace Redman, and first and foremost, I'm a mother to two young men, 22 and 24, and I've been married to their father for 27 years and been an entrepreneur for 26 years in, one of the most challenging industries, staffing and talent acquisition. And 10 years ago, I felt inspired to start a coaching side of the business because the coaching is what I loved the most about the staffing. I loved coaching my candidates, clients. And probably like you, most of the people in my circle would come to me for advice. So it just felt like the next natural step. And I think, I just shared this when I was 19 years old. There was like a small voice inside of me. I knew that I needed some professional support. I didn't want to continue down the same path that I was going down. And so I started therapy by the grace of God. I saw an ad in a newspaper, and that led me to Catholic Charities. And I saw the same lady on and off for 25 years. And 10 years ago, when I started the coaching side of the business, I was excited. I reached out to share with her. And she said, Grace, please don't get offended by what I'm about to share with you. But when I met you when you were 19 years old, I didn't believe that there was any hope left for you.
Jeez, what a
And
way to bounce back.
so I said, I'm not offended at all. And this just speaks to the resilience of the human spirit and what we're able to accomplish despite our circumstances.
I think that's perfect too, because I feel like sometimes people get in certain leadership positions and they're there to give advice, but things have been pretty easy and they haven't had any difficulties and things like that. Like, I don't really want to go to that person. I don't know if I want to open up and connect. And I want to see someone that's gone through some difficult things, overcome things. I think the best way to know if someone's, true or not is if they've been through difficult things. I think resilience is one of those like buzzwords that kind of gets overdone. It's like resilience, you can bounce back, you can, get up, but really it's doing super difficult things or things you never thought possible and then coming out on the other side. But that's not really what we talk about. It's like, oh, the wins on the one side, but it's really the late nights and the grueling hours and things like that. One question I wanted to ask you with coaching, I feel like nowadays it's like really popular. Like there's a lot of life coaches and things like that. How do you see coaching and mentorship? And, there's a lot of terms that are very close, but I know they're different. So how do you distinguish coaching from some of these other terms that are very close?
What are some of the other terms, for example?
I like mentor, guidance, things like that. Like, oh, I want a mentor. Like, do you want a mentor or a coach? Those are
Right.
different, but people kind of use them synonymously.
Sure. I believe I do a little bit of both coaching and mentoring because coaching is typically very question based. You're asking the questions and the client is uncovering the answers within themselves. Whereas mentoring is you are asking questions, but you're also offering advice. So if I'm being transparent, I do a little bit of both. I do focus very heavily on the questions because we all have our answers within us. And so when we ask those probing questions, the client's able to have those light bulb moments and uncover and discover what they're meant to. And of course, it's a little bit mentoring, but sometimes I feel like if we give too much too fast, they're not, it's not like they're not processing and integrating it. So that's what I feel the difference between coaching and mentoring is.
Yeah, that
Coaching is
makes
very
sense.
question based.
Yeah, trying to pull it out and trying to get them to use their own. We all, like you said, have it within us. So we just need to figure out how to get it out of there.
Right.
That is a good distinction between those two. For the warm up question, one thing I'm really curious on, I've asked the question a couple times on success and, before, as we were kids and then growing up. So, what's something you believed about success when you were younger that's completely different now?
Well, I mean, growing up in the environment around me, success was the bottom line. Success was your image, what it looked like on the outside, and no one really paid attention to what was on the inside. And I was very successful financially. I looked successful on the outside, and then on the inside, I was exhausted, felt unfulfilled. And so, really, now the definition of success for me is feeling fulfilled from the inside out, not from the outside in.
Yeah,
And
that's so
I still love success and, I still love money, but it starts within me. It doesn't define me.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's come up multiple times, like I said, and it's just so common how it was the cars, the money, the finances and things like that. And now like helping others and, maybe even helping others to gain finances and fancy cars or whatever.
Absolutely.
But there's just so many more things that are, more important than the outward image and things like that. Now I feel like, I'll get the knockoff of certain things. So I'm like, does it really even matter? It was funny for so
Right.
long. Like as a kid, I grew up with like hand me downs and things like that with my mom and me kind of against the world for a while, in Section 8 housing and stuff like that. And so I always wanted like brands. And now that I'm like completely able to buy the things I want and being, nearly 40, I'm like, $20 for the swoosh on the side. I don't know if that's really worth it, but it is funny how as you grow and change, things get a little bit different. Well,
I
before we dive
completely
too
agree.
much deeper, Grace, I wanted to flip the mic. What's one question you'd like to ask me?
One question I would love to ask you is what was something that you experienced that was very challenging that now when you look back at it was, one of the best things that could have happened to you?
I'd probably go with basic training. So I'm active duty military, bounce around the world. That's why I'm out here in the UK. And it's one of those things like you always come up with your basic military training stories. And it's something that we thought was really challenging. But when you glance back at it, it's kind of funny because you're directed on what to do at every step of the process. So if you really think about it, it's probably the easiest time of your life, like completely counterintuitive, where, I think the most difficult things in life really are all these decisions we have to make now. Like for 8 weeks, you really don't have to think. You can autopilot and turn your brain off. So you're getting yelled at and screamed at and doing a lot of push ups. So it feels very intense and it is very intense. But that's something as I talk with people now, it is kind of funny. We're like, that was so hard as you're in it. And you're like, I remember one of the first nights you're falling asleep, getting ready to wake up at like 4 a.m. the next day. And you're like, did I get myself into? But like once you get into week 2 or 3, you know how to make your bed, you know how to work out, you know how to get to, eat and things like that. It becomes very quick. So I think that's one thing, very rewarding. I love my career, 16 years in, I don't see myself really doing anything else. So really enjoy it. But that first 2 or 3 days, you are, yeah, really wondering about your choices, but you just got to push on. And that was one thing I think that's a really good reminder for the show and, for listeners and really for life. Like people tried to find ways to cheat. They'd say, I took drugs before I came in, or I want to hurt myself, or they try these different ways to get out. And the
Mhm.
easiest way was always just to get done, to get through. And we had, a couple people say they wanted to like harm themselves and they had to stay for observation for even longer. So we got to all leave and go on with our lives and they were still there. And so I think that's a good reminder. If you try to like make things work or cheat the system, it kind of backfires on you. You just need to do the thing you're supposed to and get through. What do you think about that?
I freaking love it because it really is a metaphor for life. If we cheat the system and we don't follow the principles, it's gonna it's gonna be messy. There's gonna be wreckage.
Come back to get you. One was funny. A guy was like, I did all the drugs. That was his way. He thought he was going to get out. And it was kind of ironic because that day we went to get drug tested. So we went over and did the P test and he came back completely clean, had nothing in his system. And so the TI, of course, was like, oh, you have no integrity. You're a liar. You're the worst person. And just like destroyed him. Like, you didn't have to make up that lie. You could have just got done with this. But
Right?
we come up with things along the way.
I love that. Again, it's a metaphor for life, really.
It
We
really
go
is.
go through it, go through the pain, go through the adversity, like feel it, lean into it instead of trying to mask it with the drugs or food or sex or whatever, it is. Cause then you're going to have to deal with it at some point.
Yeah. We'd always say the quickest way is through, and some
Yes.
people embraced it and some people hated it. I'm like, I'm down. I'm just going to embrace it and get through.
Ditto.
Your first pillar is overcoming adversity despite your circumstances. So I really enjoy this one, and I want to ask like a quick question to start off with because I've asked other people, but I'd love to hear your advice. It seems like there's this very fine line with overcoming adversity where some people get dealt the bad hand and they go, like you said, drugs and gangs and all sorts of things. Or other people use it to, I want to do better and then just catapult. How do you think, like, even though both people are given these like unfair hands, why do you think some people end up one way or another?
I mean, that's a great question. I ask myself all of the time because you could have two individuals growing up in the same household, having the same adversities or the same challenging environment. One catapults, to what we define as, success and is healthy, and the other goes the other direction. I'm still trying to figure out that question. However, what I've noticed is resilience, yes, we think of resilience as bouncing back, but also if we cultivate high performance resilience, is what you just talked about, is when we are in that adversity and we are in the storm, how do we harness, the energy and transmute it for us to thrive? And I believe, one of the first things we need to do is really get honest with ourselves because typically when we are in a state of adversity, there's fear and that fear holds us back. And so moving from a place of fear into faith in your capabilities and faith in the process, because most of us have made it through hard times, but we white knuckle it. So if we can move from that fear into faith in the process, faith in our capabilities, faith in a, higher power of your choosing, that's going, just even talking about it, I feel lighter. Moving from
Yeah.
that fear into the faith and really riding the wave, like, how can I harness this? And, the majority of Fortune 500 companies were built during down times when other people were in a place of fear. So they were able to capitalize and leverage that fear and thrive when other people were just paralyzed in fear.
It's interesting too. Like if you look back, you have that fear built in because of the caveman brain, and you wanted to not step out of your comfort zone and things like that. And it's just crazy to me how difficult it is to take leaps of faith and step out of comfort. And we know we need to. You grow, you get better, but it feels like your brain is always telling you, like, hey, you're going to get hurt, things are going to happen, which they are. Like you said, like push through it, and then you get the benefit on the other side. But I think
Totally.
that's where the
Well, because
resilience comes from.
yes, and our ego's trying to keep us safe. Our reptilian mind is trying to keep us safe. And we're, like you said, we're not running from saber-toothed tigers right now. So I really feel the most important thing is regulating your nervous system,
Mm,
reminding yourself, like, okay, I'm safe. Yes, there's uncertainty. And in this moment, am I running from a saber-toothed tiger? Like, am I being, if I can use the word, am I being bombed?
mm.
We're, in the United States and the UK, that's not something that we need to think about. So just reminding yourself, like, you are safe.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote. One of my senior enlisted leaders, I've worked at small clinics. My job is a hospital administrator. So normally I work or could work at larger hospitals, but so far I've worked at smaller clinics. And so they don't have emergency rooms and things like that. But one of his quotes I always loved, he's like, if there's no emergency room, there's really no true emergency. And he was talking about everything being the number one priority, everything being due yesterday, all these things. He's like, no one's actually laying on the table, like exposed and dying in our clinics because they're relatively small. He's like, they could be at some locations, but I thought that was a good way to reframe it. Like, not everything needs to be number one and like hair on fire and, stay late to do these things. Maybe there are certain things at certain times, but I think we kind of work ourselves a little crazy when no one's on the table. And back to
I
like the
agree.
saber-tooth tiger.
I agree. And when we start thinking of what's out of our control, I feel like we lose control within ourselves. And that's when the anxiety comes up. And it's for, in my experience, when I start future tripping, I'm like, okay, why are you future tripping? This hasn't happened. It's probably never going to happen. Come back. And I think gratitude is an incredible tool. And I use it every day. Like I struggle every day. Like I have to, get my reptilian mind, like, okay, you're safe. You're fine. Don't worry.
So on the show, that's one thing I love to touch on. So if you could, like, do you have actionable tips and tricks? I think a lot of times, we talk in hypotheticals and this would be nice. So what do you actually do to get through those difficult things each day?
Yeah. What's funny? This morning I had a memory come up, and I think I was, 23, 24 years old. Was still living at home. I was, just not in a good place at home with my family, not in a good place in the job I was in, and not in a good place with the relationship I was in. And I left all three. Like, I moved out of my home with only $1,000 in my pocket. I left my job with only $1,000 in my pocket, and I broke up with my boyfriend. And so when I was thinking about, my gosh, today feels a little bit heavy, that memory came into my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, Grace, all at one time, like, you left all of these situations that weren't serving you. This morning, you're totally fine. And I was able to go straight to the gratitude, and I shifted my state immediately.
Nice. Yeah, that's perfect. You're like, oh, I've overcome a lot bigger, I've picked up my
Totally.
whole life and started over. So the milk running out with the cereal or whatever, in the
Exactly.
morning is not that big of a deal.
Seriously, again, being of a former perfectionist and, someone who always has an idea of a compelling future, and there's, ways that I want to live and be, sometimes when things don't go my way, I get triggered, and then I have to step back and remind myself, surrender, accept, allow, and have faith.
Makes sense. So back to the victim versus, success type thing. It just hinges on a very fine line. It seems like when you're helping others, how do you help others see that their past doesn't need to define their future?
That's a great question. Well, again, we use the past as evidence, evidence of what's possible, evidence of what you've already overcome. So not only do we look at the wins, but we look at the adversity, because oftentimes we believe that our wins really cultivate our confidence and that high performance resilience, but it's really our adversities. Because when you can look back and say, wow, I overcame that, that builds confidence, and that helps you get to the wins.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Because in the military, we use this term for resilience like the rubber band, and we say it's like, oh, your ability to bounce back. And it's always one that I've never connected with or really made sense to me. But I had another coworker, she was one of my very first episodes, but she was taught the paper plate method, which I thought was way better and a better visual because I love to be able to visualize what people are talking about. So she was talking about a paper plate. If you had a single plate and they put a large helping of something like some problem on your plate, it's going right on the floor. You can't handle it. But once you conquered things and gotten through a bunch of different stuff, those are all separate paper plates. Now you have 5 to 10 built up, and you can take that large bowl of spaghetti or whatever it is, and you're able to withstand it. But you get through it and you build up. It's not just a band snapping back into position because that never really made sense. But have you heard of anyone's kind of like that?
I like the paper plate, and I feel like that's the compound effect. Like, you're building your resilience muscles. And what I've noticed from my experience, although, I am experiencing, a storm in my life right now, it doesn't throw me off course. Like, I'm still able to experience joy. I'm still able to move forward in my business and in my personal life. It's not drowning me. However, I wouldn't be able to thrive and kind of harness the energy of this storm if I hadn't been doing the work, if I hadn't looked back and connected the dots as, past adversities being evidence of what I am able to do. So I'm not just white knuckling it and waiting for the storm to pass. I'm still, I'm thriving. I'm like that Fortune 500 company starting during a downtime. I'm going to have leverage over those who are in fear during this crazy chaotic time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love to share stories on the show. Can you take us back to a specific time if that's possible? I mean, there's a lot of different ones where you felt like your circumstances were stacked against you, yet you found a way through.
Well, the economic crisis of 2008,
Mm.
I had been in business, almost 10 years by then, and we were very successful. And I walked into the office on January 2009, and we had zero billing. I had never experienced anything like that. And so my livelihood was taken away overnight, and I had to lay off, employees. And it wasn't I wasn't the only one affected. There were many people affected, but having never experienced something like that before, it really affected me. And I played the victim for a couple months, and then I knew like I had to make a choice. And I had to put my big girl panties on. And the way I did that was, okay, people need support. So I focused on helping others, and that got us through 2009. And at the end of the year, my accountant was surprised that, we made it out in the black. Granted, it didn't look like it the years before, but we still made it through. And it was a tough year, very tough year, because I had never experienced anything like that. We're experiencing something similar now, but because I've been through, 4 downturns and the pandemic, it sucks. And this is temporary.
Yeah. This too much shall pass. Everything's always changing. The only thing constant is change. What do you think between, your 4 or 5 times through this, what do you think your biggest takeaway is that you've learned on how to address these things as they come up now? Or are they kind of unique, I guess, maybe for each one?
For me, at the end of the day, it's about having faith in the God of my understanding. I know I'm taking the steps each day to get up, to move forward, to be of service, to do my spiritual practice, my emotional practice, physical practice, do all of those things. So I know I'm putting, the effort in, and I trust the process. And the way I do it different now, I used to be hustle and grind. And yes, now I take massive action during these times, and I rest. Just because we are in a season doesn't mean I have to go 24/7. The rest is going to help me also get through the storm.
Yeah, that makes sense, which is a perfect transition because your next pillar is surrender, faith, and trusting the process. Surrender can be kind of a loaded word. How do you define surrender?
Well, for me, being, initially a fighter and loving, the Eye of the Tiger and Rocky, like, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to fight my way through it. Like, I thought surrender, like, I'm not going to give up. Like, I'm not someone who gives up. And then I learned that surrender is not about giving up. It's really about letting go and accepting where you are and being open to more and better. And so I practice surrender all of the time, and it's not always easy, but I can feel it in my body when I surrender. And it's amazing what happens. Like, I can be in a situation where I'm about to lose it, and I'm like, okay, Grace, it's out of your control. Breathe, surrender, let go. And the solution like comes instantly. I'm like, okay, had I not surrendered and I just would have lost my cat, like lost it, the solution wouldn't have come so easy. So easy.
That's awesome that, you got the positive spin on it. Cause I think there's certain things like self care. I think it's another one that's like really popular right now. And people use it as an excuse to buy too much or get massages. And not that I'm downplaying either of those, everyone recharges in a completely different way. So if that's your thing, that's your thing. But sometimes I think the words throughout, time, or maybe because they're buzzwords right now, kind of lose their meaning. So I like how you were able to define surrender, being able to, relinquish, but, not necessarily give up. You're not rolling over or
No.
giving up.
Uh-uh.
What, was there a defining moment where faith became more than just a concept, but more of a lifeline?
Yes, 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 yes. There was. You know, in September of 2022, I was diagnosed with cancerous growths on my thyroid. Actually, I had a thyroidectomy in September 2022. I was diagnosed in July, and they told me that I would never be the same again. And I was like, yeah, most situations in my life, I was told I was going to fail or it wasn't going to work out. And this time, a- although I've always had faith and a love for the God of my understanding, this situation helped me lean into it even deeper and cultivate a deeper sense of spirituality. And now I feel like I just have it's just a knowing I have within myself. No matter what, I will be okay. It will work out. And I have 54 years of evidence to prove that. And
Yeah,
I
you're
am
still
okay. I'm
here.
better than ever. So they said I'd never be the same again. My health would decline. And here I am.
Still here getting up each day with a little bit of peace that maybe knows no understanding. So I was wondering, you had talked a couple times about trusting the process. I feel like I've heard that a lot as well. What does trusting the process look like in the messy middle before the breakthrough?
I hear what you're saying about, hearing, trusting the process. And it's not doesn't mean don't take accountability and do whatever you want. It means taking accountability. And when you take accountability and take those steps like you talked about, you're doing the right thing, everything will unfold the way it's meant to. Because we can't control everything, but we can control how we show up. We can control our actions, our decisions, and then trust the process from there. And I love how you said it's like self-care, and then people aren't really taking accountability or these buzzwords. I feel like in all of this, like we need to take accountability first.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely agree. One of the things that drives me nuts, I don't have many pet peeves, but one of them, for whatever reason, is the term lucky.
Ah,
Because for some reason, like I have, I feel like I've done pretty well in a work standpoint. And I've tried to come in early and stay late and take care of people and do my best, be the best that I can be and grow others and grow myself. But it always just drives me nuts when I get a promotion or get the assignment I want, or I get something that kind of lines up. And inevitably, it seems like every time there'll be somebody goes, lucky. I'm like, I think there probably is luck in a little bit of everything, so I will not discount it at all. But like to your point, I've been in the rooms that I need to be in with the people that need to help me, doing the things I need to do. And it really reminds me of like the iceberg meme, or there's like different images for it, but it's like all that grinding underneath the water, late nights, staying away and doing different things. And then at the top of the iceberg above the water is always like, the assignment or the thing that you wanted. It's like, oh, it must be so nice. It's like, well, if you would have shown up and done the things, maybe you'd be there too. Do you kind of feel that same way?
so you just hit a nerve with me because, there was an elderly lady in my life that would always say, "You're so lucky." And I'd get so like upset. And then I have another friend, she's like, "It's just luck." Yes, I'm lucky that my parents immigrated to the United States and I got to be born here. That's lucky. However, all of, my success, you're right. Like I was in the gym. I'm still in the gym 5 days a week. I still walk on top of that 5 days a week. Even when my kids were young, every day, even when my kids were young, I would find time to do these things. I'd be up till 1 o'clock in the morning working. I would, miss out on social events because I wanted to be present for my kids and my business. And I still do that. So I'm not where I'm at because of luck. I'm where I'm at because I'm committed and consistent and I do the work.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely frustrating. I know there's sometimes like I put different people like my troops and whatnot in for awards, and like they'll lose, and I'll be like, oh, why'd they lose? And come to find out, someone else had like pulled someone out of a burning building or something. Just like every once in a while, I'm like, okay, there's nothing you can do about that. You did what you needed to. You showed up. You were committed, but they were a hero on some random day or something. So I think there are times, but yeah, I think if you're doing what you're supposed to, generally, things come through the way they're supposed to. Maybe not always right away. I think that's another thing. We aren't very good with delayed gratification. We want everything now, which is crazy. I mean, we have fast food and all these things. We just want everything like quicker and better and faster all the time. And I think some things, like we talked about, the resilience, like some of those come from the long, difficult times.
Absolutely. And I've been doing, the staffing for 26 years. 10 years ago, I started the coaching side of the business. And now I'm realizing as I'm reflecting, I'm like, holy cow, those 26 years were preparing me for, this next chapter in my career to serve, to be a servant leader. And it didn't come overnight. And so I don't believe in overnight success. I really, I don't.
It's so funny. If my brother ever listens to this episode, which I doubt he will, I always think this one's funny because he was addicted for a while to Shark Tank.
As
And he'd
such.
always see these ones and like they'd get picked up. And he's like, look, all you got to do is have like one idea and then it'll get taken and you'll be rich. And I was always trying to convey to him, like, that's probably like their 20th product, their 30th product. Like they've probably done a whole bunch of different things. I doubt, I mean, maybe I don't know, one out of 1,000 is like their first ever, but I really doubt those are their first ones. And I've also mentioned on the show like WD-40, the lubricant you have in your garage, the yellow and blue. It's in every household in the world, but it was the 40th recipe. So they had 39 that sucked
Yeah,
and they had to keep pushing until they got to 40. So you never know which one it's going to be.
totally. And I always, in business, I think of a few things. The Shawshank Redemption, so Andy Dufresne was in his cell just picking away at it. And so when I get like, oh my gosh, it hasn't happened yet, it's not happening, I think of Andy Dufresne. And I think of Famous Amos because Famous Amos, they say he knocked on, 1,000 doors before someone bought his cookies. So and, Colonel Sanders, I just found out I love Kentucky Fried Chicken, haven't had it forever, but I love it. He was, like, 65 before Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, I saw a picture the other day. I wish I could remember who all was in it. It was like a panel and it had 4 or 5 people in it. And yeah, it was a bunch of like famous to us now people, but it was like 40, 50, 60. I was like, they didn't just wake up one day and like they were older on their days. So yeah,
Right.
you never really know. We
You
always
don't
think that
know.
it's like supposed to be super young, but things can happen at any time.
Can.
Throughout all the people you've helped and things you've worked on, what do you think is the biggest like misconception on overcoming your adversity?
The biggest misconception of overcoming your adversity, that while you're in the adversity, you have to be miserable. And
Okay.
I don't believe we need to be miserable while we're going through the adversity. I believe we get to make a choice. Like, okay, yes, we're going through some hard times right now, but that doesn't mean that I need to be unhappy and struggling going while we're going through it. Because pain is inevitable. I mean, I didn't make this up. I think it was Buddha, but pain is inevitable. Struggling is optional.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. So it doesn't have to just suck to suck. You can have it, give it purpose or, frame your mindset, which I think goes back to our, we were talking earlier about the victim mindset. And it's so easy on that thin line between using it for fuel to become better than you ever thought you could or, going to drugs. I mean, it's like right there where you just got to figure out what you're using it for and why you're using it. So that's a good reminder.
Yeah, self awareness.
Your last pillar is high performance resilience. How do you define resilience in the context of showing up strong in life and business?
I think is just what we just spoke about is when we're going through the adversity instead of white knuckling it to really harness the energy. Because when we're going through adversity, we typically find ourselves in a fight or flight response. It's natural. So, number one, regulating our nervous system and then harnessing that energy to move yourself forward. So you have that leverage. Like we don't need to white knuckle it and wait for the storm to pass. Let's harness that energy of the storm and use it, like you said, for purpose. And, being of service to others when you're going through a challenging time is one of the most healing things that you can do. Because oftentimes when we're going through struggle, we're focusing on ourselves and how we're not getting what we want. And that creates the anxiety. And so taking the focus off of ourselves and putting it on there's always someone that needs, you know, to be held or seen or supported. And so cultivating that high performance resilience isn't about white knuckling it. It's about riding the storm. And then you build that muscle. So the next time you're going through it, like I said, we don't have to be miserable while we're going through our challenges.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the idea of helping others because there's very few times we're going to help somebody and not feel good about it. So
Totally.
you're going to get yourself out of, thinking about yourself, like you said, and then maybe a little bonus, you feel good about it. So, I mean, why not? It's a win win. There shouldn't be too many times where you're helping others and it really backfires. What's your process for bouncing back? Not eventually, but consistently.
For me, managing my state, like we talked about earlier, when this morning things didn't go my way and then I was, upset. And I said, okay, hold on, stop, pause, take a deep breath. right now I'm grateful for the opportunity that I am able to get out of bed. I have my legs, like I have a sister who's disabled. Each morning she has to wait for someone to help her out of bed. That right there, it just shifts my mood. So because we can't be in gratitude and in fear at the same time, or in gratitude and in, stress at the same time. It really helps shift us. I know it may be cliche and it's very powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like a lot of times on the show, I say super cliche things, but if they're true, I mean, unfortunately, they're true, and I'm going to keep saying them. And I did see recently, I forgot where it was, but that thing about gratitude and how it like overpowers your brain. That's pretty awesome, where you can't have the anxiety. I think it was, they were looking at different parts of your brain lighting up in a machine. It's like once you go to gratitude, the other one just goes black. Like that's just the way it works. It's pretty cool where you can either do one or the other. Reminds me
Totally.
in a weird way of like when you were hurt as a kid and then somebody would like punch your leg or something like, oh, it doesn't hurt anymore, right? Because your leg would hurt versus your hand or whatever it was.
You're totally right
Maybe.
because we can't focus on more than one thing at a time. So once we start focusing on the gratitude, it breaks our state from, whatever the lack was, and it puts us in a state of gratitude. You know what else I love that helps me is music. Like I love
Mm.
Justin Timberlake's I Got This Feeling because I feel like music has frequency and high frequency. And so when I put music on, that just I can feel it reverberate through my body and that changes my state right away too.
I was wondering, a couple times you mentioned nervous system regulation. Do you have practical things? Is there a certain breathing way, or like what do you do when you start to identify some of those things?
Totally my breath because sometimes I don't breathe. And I kind of use gratitude and the breathing at the same time, and the thoughts just go up, and I just keep repeating one thing after another that I'm grateful for as I'm breathing, and that really helps, regulate my nervous system, because if we're in a constant state of fight or flight like most of us are, we're in a state of survival, and when we're in a state of survival, we're not resourceful, and we're not gonna hear or see anything. The only thing we're gonna be focusing on is how to survive.
Yeah, that is interesting. I was watching a thing, and again, I can't remember what it was, but it was like we were talking about earlier, the caveman brain or reptilian brain, and your ability to be innovative is like next to nothing if you don't want to take risk and try new things and step outside your comfort zone. So it is interesting how your brain again like focuses or shifts from one thing to another. So if you want to be safe, then you kind of stay in one spot. But if you, like you said, want to switch over and be more innovative, you need to be a little bit more open and things like that, but you're shifting from one to another. So like you said, if you're always in that, fight or flight, you're not making very innovative decisions or creative or new things. You're kind of just doing the same old thing.
Exactly, and I think that's where we get stuck in the loop, and that's why meditation and prayer or taking a walk, there's different forms of meditation. I know I have a few friends that use meditate walking as a meditation. But I mean, for those who are listening or watching, oftentimes when you're in the shower because you feel the water flowing on you and you're kind of in that relaxed state. I don't know about you, but how many ideas have come to my mind in the shower? It's amazing.
Yeah, there's a reason they have the term shower thoughts because those
Totally.
thoughts are pretty powerful. And another place is the gym. The
Yep,
title of my show, Mental Fitness. But I know there's quite a few people I work out with the morning, and they're like, my meditation is the hour in the morning.
totally.
And at first I was like, "Oh, that's kinda you're not meditating, your heart rate's up." Like and like you said, like, we always seem to think it's cross-legged with certain music, sitting on the floor or whatever, but there's a whole bunch of different stuff. So they find, that peace and that resetting and recharging in the gym, then that's the meditation. So I think
Totally.
sometimes we want it to be too specific, someone, a monk hitting a gong or something specific, but
Yeah.
I was curious, can you share a story where your mindset made all the difference in the outcome of what you were going through?
I feel like, again, in September of 2022, when I was diagnosed with the cancerous growths on the thyroid, and they told me I'd never be the same again, that was in July. And so my surgery wasn't until September. So I had 2 months to really get committed to the vision of my future self. And I really feel that I shifted the timeline because of the work I did, just focusing on a healthy version of myself. Had I slipped into the fear when the doctor said you'd never be the same again. Cause I was like, do you know who you're talking to? Like, don't tell me that. I feel that was, a time that I really just dove into my mindset. And at the same time, I was going through a challenge in my marriage and recognized that was something I had to make a change with as well. So, two major life transitions at the same time. And had I not used mindset, I don't know where I'd be today.
So, did you go through 5 stages of grief, or could you walk us through briefly what the processing of that news?
That's a great question. Five stages of grief. I don't know if I went through all five stages. I definitely, went through just like why now, questioning it, denial,
Some anger.
for sure anger. Like the anger came out like whiplash, like, I whiplashed you. And, it's going to be 3 years in September. And I'll tell you, it's been a wild ride to get to where I am. Like my whole lifestyle changed. And it has not been easy, but like you said earlier, it's like, okay, like committed to these steps, committed to these decisions, committed to these actions. And look, it's taken almost 3 years. The first year I was feeling better, but it was a whole lifestyle shift. And it, like we said earlier, it doesn't happen overnight. Like my fitness, my spirituality, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, it wasn't overnight. Like the last 3 years have been very committed and focused.
Yeah, one of my favorite things for the gym mantras, maybe it is commitment over, or no, not commitment, consistency over motivation. That's like my favorite, because I feel like motivation is this thing that comes and goes. It's a feeling, like some days you'll feel like it, but consistency is just, that's it. Like you need to go and you're going to go. And one of my coaches I use on Tonal, Joe Rodanis, he uses the term non-negotiable. I like that one too. Like working out is a non-negotiable. There's not, and that gives a different frame to me, because you could be like, oh, it's too cold, or I didn't get my shoes out, or I don't have the socks I like. But once you label non-negotiable, that's it. There's no justifying it or playing it over in my head. It's already in the category of non-negotiable. So, and
Yeah,
I also
it's
love the consistency.
for sure. For me, it's the steps every day and the workout is non-negotiable. And some days I'm like, oh, I really don't want to do it. I rather, sleep in or sit on the couch. But I'm like, no, it's a non-negotiable. If you want the results and you want that future, life, then I get up and go. There, it's a non-negotiable every single day.
Yeah, motivation won't always be there, but
No,
consistency always wins.
it
Well,
does.
Grace, I'd like to try to bring it all together.
Thank
What's your
you.
message to the person listening who's tired, stuck, or ready to give up, but still has a tiny spark left?
I would say if you're tired and you're ready to give up, definitely rest. Bring some play and fun because we didn't even talk about that. Like play and fun is so important. Do not quit because despite your circumstances, you can absolutely make it and do it. Just rest, play, have fun, pause, don't quit. If I could do it and get to where I am, anybody can do it.
And you just never know like how close you are. There's a picture I saw the other day where it's like the guy and he's mining and he's about to take one more swing, and on the other side of this little tiny piece of dirt is like a diamond or treasure chest or whatnot, and he ends up walking away. He doesn't know the next swing is like what's going to get him there. He feels like he's too tired, he's gone too far, so he's going to walk away. And that's one I should print and like hang on my mirror. So I'm like, that's a good one. You
Yes.
don't know if it's the next one, like WD-40. They went from 39 to 40. 40 was the jackpot, and now it's in every household in the world. I think I've gotten it in, I think, Japan and the UK. So,
Yeah. No, I
well,
love that.
Grace, thank you for sharing your heart, your
Thank
fight, and
you.
your faith. Your story reminds us that comeback is always stronger than the setback. And surrender doesn't mean giving up, it means giving over. Before we close out, where can listeners connect with you, your coaching, and your speaking?
Yes, they can find me at www.graceredman.com, and that's Redman. And you can also Google me and my social medias, IG, LinkedIn, Facebook. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Grace, for coming out. To
Thank you.
everyone tuning in, thank you for spending this time with us. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with someone that needs it, leave a review, and let us know your favorite takeaway. This is Mind Force. I love you all. See ya.